This continues my budget sessions. We're hopeful that we'll be able to finish them all up today and get them done, and then get the budget announced and then distributed to our city council for their due diligence and hopeful passage. I want to first commend our award-winning financial division, headed by CAFO TJ Plan and Lindsay Hackett, Melody Adobe, and the rest of the financial team. And I'm very appreciative, again, from my cabinet heads down to rank and file, many who have been, and their families, by my side since day one of this COVID-19. Tested and true. With the budget, we will continue to be efficient, effective, strategic, and compassionate as we move forward. This budget is going to really amount to nearly $750 million. And once we defeat, which we will, this COVID-19, it'll be a decade after that devastating EF3 tornado. And the resiliency, and we rebuilt bigger, better, and stronger. As President Biden says, we're going to do the same thing here. And I deeply appreciate that. And with Parks, Pat Sullivan and team and facilities, as Congressman Neal said yesterday on our announcement, we have an outstanding park system, one that is envied throughout the Northeast. And as far as facilities, the physical plan of our buildings, tremendous improvement. And Pat, to you and your team, just massive, John, Pete, the whole crew there, massive work done to make sure public buildings in our schools are safe and sound, above the ASHRAE standards to deal with COVID-19. I'm joined here by Chief of Staff Tom Ash, and again, Tom, our sympathy and thoughts and prayers on your mom. Just a wonderful person. Yes. So with that, I'll go have TJ say a few words. I don't see any city councilors on for any type of opening remarks. Kathleen Brown's ever faithful from the East Springfield Neighborhood Council. Thank you, Kathleen. And let me turn it over to CAFO TJ Plant for any remarks, and then we'll go into the presentation.
Thanks, Mayor. Pat, I know you've been through this numerous times. This really, as you know, is your opportunity to tell the mayor about your priorities and the upcoming additions that you're looking to have, the bringing back some sports or recreational activities, water activities. This is really your opportunity to talk about the highlights that have happened in the last year, and then kind of what your plan is for next year. We have a series of questions we'll get to, but this is more for you guys to present to us of what you're hoping to accomplish next fiscal year.
Tom, do you have anything you'd like to say at all?
No.
And TJ, Pat is always ready with something to go, so I'm not worried about that. Director Sullivan, go ahead, you and your team, please.
Well, I just want to thank you, Mayor, your assistant Tom Ash, and the whole finance team for the support for the past year. We've worked well together, and it's been a difficult year, but I can't think of a better group to be working with. The individuals joining me here today, along with Tom Dougal and Kathy Cavanies, these people have been my go-tos for the past year when we've had our cabinet meetings, and I've gotten the answers back to both you and finance quickly. It's because of these individuals. And I think right down to our trade staff, down to our total staff, forestry, park maintenance, everyone has stepped up over the past year to get us to this point. And I'm just proud to work with such talented people. But I was going to start with the facilities division. Over the past 15 years, we've invested over $680 million into our facilities. Due to the efforts of John Kerrigan, he's now coordinating $3.75 million in summer work. We've been averaging $2 to $2.5 million a year in summer work, and we continue to make those upgrades. Over the past 10 years, Mayor, you've invested well over 30 million into the HVAC systems. I believe that's why we've been so successful with our response to this pandemic, is because of the past investments that you and TJ have given us to be able to put into our school system. Just last night on the news, there was a neighboring community that has an elementary school closed. They can't open maybe till September, and I feel bad for that community, but it just shows by making those investments, we were able to respond and do the work that we had to do. Our facilities trade staff, they've been remarkable during this past year. They've worked cross trades to get all the equipment installed. They've given us working with John and given us the estimates when finance needed to know how much. They were right there working with John and I to get you that information. So again, just very proud of the team. In our budget, we were asked for a budget cut. Any budget cut, both on parks or facilities, would be really dramatic at this point. We do our best to manage the buildings. I sound like a broken record. We never have enough money. But when we do have a need, you and TJ are always there to find a solution for us. But I'm hopeful that we don't have to take any cuts from this current budget, because it's tough year to year to balance things and to get the work that we need to get done.
Hey, Pat, don't worry about that, Pat.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you that we're not focusing so much on the 3% reduction.
All right, very good. That's good news.
Okay,
So in our additional request, we've asked on the facility side, we're asking for 2.1 million. A lot of these items we feel could probably fit the category of the 95 million that you're getting in. But some of the highlights are elevator repairs, both in municipal buildings, fire stations, library buildings. We would like to make upgrades to the city hall bathrooms. The city hall windows, we've gotten a grant to study the windows. We're recommending to you in finance to put 200,000 a year into the budget. And basically, maybe we can address a side of the building over the next 4 years, or just get them all done with this additional money that we're anticipating from our federal government. The other critical piece, the city hall roof is getting to beyond its design life. That roof should be basically studied, bid specs developed. So again, we're ready to go if there's stimulus money for that. The other thing that we've requested in this budget is an additional facilities custodial management position for the new shooting range. I met some of the officers. They are so grateful to you and TJ for getting that operation up. John and I are also very grateful, because now we're protecting the air quality in the current police station. And they said for the first time in 30 years, they've gone home and they haven't had the after effects of shooting the guns or being around the guns shooting. And I won't go into what that's taken away from them, but they are just so grateful that they now have a safe environment. So that was an excellent decision to move forward by creating that lease and getting them moved over to that situation.
I talked to a bunch of officers, and obviously the commissioner and her team, but the morale that has gone up so much because they actually have a state-of-the-art place that they don't feel like they're in the basement trying to shoot and stuff. So I mean, it's just the added impact of, especially during a time like this where it's tough to be a police officer, to be able to boost their morale and show that we're supporting them by giving them a state-of-the-art facility has been great.
And that was the right move to make, without question, on that. And also just for the viewing public too, on City Hall upgrades. And we have one of the most beautiful, historic, architecturally noted city halls in the nation. Pat and team do a great job, but you have to invest. You have to do R&D. And I know on the window situation, personally, in my office, many times the windows will just blow right open. So not only safety, but the energy efficiency, which Pat has been my green person on, and then the roof and other things that have to be done. We need to preserve these beautiful historic buildings. We're doing it in a cost-effective way, but after years and years and years, things wear down. So that is the reasoning we did receive that grant on the study, and with some federal money coming in, and the capital investments have to be made on it. So just to clarify that.
I have to creating the capital review committee that you did 3 to 4 years ago, and then having a staff person in finance coordinating grants has been a great resource to us. As we find the grants, there's a great system in place now. So again, we heard about the grant to do City Hall windows. We applied for a grant to start the study at Old First Church. So these are all important grants that are going to give us the information that we need, again, with this, hopefully this $2 trillion that might be coming down the pipeline. We're going to be in a good place to put a lot of money to where we need to invest it. And it goes, all these projects overall go to the economic development of our city. So again, I'm just grateful to Lindsay, Melanie, Aaron, and TJ. It's great. We pick up the phone, we talk once or twice a week when needed, and we've got quick turnarounds on all these projects. And with that, I'll just go into the questions.
Yeah, and I want to say, Pat, to the crews, above and beyond, the cleaning that has gone on, the hospitality is where we've kept our municipal buildings all open via appointment or more. It is deeply appreciative. They've gone above and beyond and deeply appreciative. And go ahead if you want to hit the questions. I think some of you tackled, but go ahead, Pat, on the questions we had.
Well, what I'll also do, I have some notes that I'm working from. I'm going to get these down to TJ and Lindsay, and that way they'll, this has the full listing of our additional requests and everything. So that way you'll have them for your documentation, and you can figure out how to get them funded for me.
You're always ready to go, Pat. I know it.
So on the first facilities question, how has the move to the in-house cleaning service been going? Has there been a need? It's been excellent. And I think just this past year with COVID, if we didn't have that work in-house, the cost would have been astronomical. It would have been upcharges. And John and I just so strongly believe in both in-house custodial and in-house trades. And that's why we put that position forward in this budget for the shooting range. That should just be kept in-house. It gives you more control. And then when these type of problems come up, you've got a crew ready to respond. On the condition of the facilities fleet, we've appreciated the support, but the average age of our fleet is 14 years old. So hopefully we can find a way to continue the replacement of those vehicles. John's done just an outstanding job in that, how he outfits, how he sets up the vans. He has any type of emergency that could pop up. He's got vans outfitted and ready to respond. And I think 2 years ago, when we had to open up Rebecca Johnson as a warming shelter, that's just one example of how John has facilities ready to respond to those type of emergencies.
That was during the, I remember that, that January, and that was the Gerard Avenue, the apartments there, when the water, all the water pipes broke.
And not that we hit it or anything, but what people didn't realize, we took some water in from snow melt and stuff. John had pumps ready to go to pump out a section of that basement at Rebecca Johnson. So because he's ready to respond to these type of things, we were ready to get that going, as well as handle any water that was coming into our own building and not miss a beat. So I just am very grateful to John and his talents. And then how is the addition of facilities and engineer benefit the city? So we've lost probably 7 or 8 key management positions. And again, understanding there's always that need to balance the overall budget. This position is going to be critical. The school department has an immediate need for acoustical rooms for students, and that's our first project. But again, we write many grants. So when Noel left, I took back over working with John to get the SOIs done, and there's a round due in June. So that takes time that I can't be using to apply for other grants or just in the day-to-day management. But again, we all pitch in, we get the work done. So I'm going to be training that individual in this next round and the next year, give him that training. And so that work can now be shared. And we would love to, we have a plan to basically take those 7 and convert them into 3 to 4 positions. So overall, we would have a reduction, but we do need to find a way to get those positions funded back in the budget, because John and I are going 6 days a week. This poor guy needs a day off. We've got to get into a normal work schedule, if you will, at some point.
I have to say, it's cost effective. With your work, the MSBA, over $600 million for these schools, your SOIs, the rehabs, rehabilitation we're doing. So this is a worthwhile investment, because it turns into hundreds of millions of dollars that we bring in. So we'll move on that. I know that very cumbersome, and the MSBA really uses us as an example throughout the Commonwealth, not only for new schools, but I think they use how we do it to other districts, how you apply for rehabilitation of your building. So key work. We appreciate that, John.
I question 4, how will the addition of an assistant municipal coordinator benefit the city? This is the position we need for the shooting range. So I'm hopeful in this budget going forward. Again, we're balancing staff. It hasn't been easy with COVID, but so we're kind of putting people all over the place to keep these areas clean. But that building, it's so big, it needs a dedicated staff for that building. And 5, explain the necessity of the upgrades. So a lot of our money, and rightfully so, goes into the school district. We've been level funded in increasing municipal buildings across the board. So our libraries, fire stations, and even City Hall, we do need additional funding to keep up with the day-to-day maintenance of those buildings. And I think those are spelled out in our additional request lines, and we'll give you additional documentation. But just for the day-to-day maintenance and to give the trades the materials they need to make those repairs, it stops basically from it turning into a capital project. So this investment up front will just be better in the long run in keeping our capital budget down. Then the last question was, how has the department been managed the purchase of COVID-related materials? So through finance, we have a bi-monthly meeting. John and Maureen Beer keep track of an inventory list. I have Chris Seabrooks working with John this afternoon. They're actually going to photograph all the materials and create an order sheet, so everyone will basically have a picture of what's available in the inventory, so they have a better understanding what they could possibly know what's available for their individual departments. But as we've gotten the requests, we've gotten the information out. So we've got a good supply of materials, and hopefully as more people get vaccinated, the need for those materials will be reduced.
Pat, I have to say on the COVID front, and I know you've worked hand in hand with everybody, every department, especially Commissioner Helen Fulton Harris, making sure with our buildings and the vaccine sites that we've scouted out for neighborhood vaccinations. The homeless, how we moved immediately, well over a year ago, to make sure that our homeless population was protected with the medical triage facility that we temporarily built on sticks, the parking lot there. Very appreciative of President John Cook and the Board of Trustees. And when we were doing it, some people questioned it, and then they, after months passed, they commended us for the move there, because we really kept the homeless population protected on the COVID-19. So you're key in a lot of the things that we done pre-COVID-19, and a lot of things we're doing COVID-19, and a lot of things we will do post-COVID-19. So much appreciated. That's why I call you the Wizard of Oz. TJ, any other questions or Tom?
No, I'm good with facilities. Thanks for everything, Pat.
Yeah, well, again, I'm grateful to TJ because I was wearing out my welcome, because every day I was saying I need another 50,000 for the tent. So he was right there saying, go ahead and do it. And it was the right move. Again, there you see what happened in Boston and Worcester. They had a great jump in COVID with their homeless population. And I think your timing on setting up the tents was the right move. I think we had upwards to 15 to 18 individuals in there at one time. So you can see if you didn't have that facility across the street, that would have easily gone through that entire complex. So it was the right move. I just wish we had this spring weather last year because we were dealing with snow squalls and windstorms with the tents, but we made it through it. And John had a baby during the setup of the tent. So he was taking calls while the wife was delivering the baby. So
I hope you didn't put your wife on hold, John.
no, that would have been
You better not do that, John.
that would have been a death sentence.
Billy, I don't know if there's any city councils on. No. Okay, so if there's no other questions, thank you, facilities. Thanks, Pat. We'll move back. We'll go to the parks now.
Yeah, so on the park side, again, I'm just grateful to Pete and Alex and Tom Dougal. They're my go-to people on the park side. When you consider we have about $16 million in active park projects going on for a park district of our size, that's a lot of money. But it's critical money, and that for a city our size and how much bonding capability that you have and the other work that we've done, it's what's keeping our park system to the level of a high quality park system that I think our residents now expect. I think that's something they deserve, and we're proud. But these grants are the lifeline to, and I also have to give a shout out to Kathy Bono and Tim Sheehan and TJ on this matter. The CDBG funds, Mayor, that you allocate through those individuals or that department are invaluable in leveraging these state and federal grants. That's how we match a lot of these grants, and I think it shows. And the state and the feds love that. They love it when we're using those CDBG dollars to leverage their dollars. So, well, we had good news last week, Mayor, on the Duggan. We had the archaeological study completed at the Duggan. There was no findings. So we have sent that to Melissa Cryan at the state, and I think they're going to get some good news in the next few weeks on the Duggan Field project. And we had some questions on the Greenleaf Park grant project. They seem to be favorable. So I think we're going to get some good news on that grant as well. But it's good news on what I heard from you on the budget impact. That's lessened. But we are trying to get back into operating pools in our summer enrichment programs. Per your direction, Mayor, I agree. The families of our city need these programs up and going again. We already started getting calls, so we feel we'll have that information. So for finance, we just got the governor's guidance. There's going to be additional costs per the governor's guidance to run these programs. So we will get that information to you probably by the end of next week. But they're basically requesting additional staff per location, and that's not in this budget at this time because we just got the guidance last week. In our additional request, and I think some of this could fit the monies that are coming from the feds, Sierra Arena is doing very well. We now have it where it's in the black, but we have put forward the new dashboards. It needs a new roof. We should be updating the new lease for the Zamboni. On forestry, Alex has done a tremendous job dealing with the storms, and to Alex's credit, he's now bringing in a lot of grant money. We got the MVP grant. He's finishing the greenhouse and the tree nursery. He's had meetings with the U.S. Forest Service on that last storm. They are in discussion now of using Springfield as a model. They like what he's doing under the mayor's direction with forestry. So to Alex's credit, we're moving forestry in a whole new direction and a better direction, and it's due to his leadership. But in his division, we need to increase our tree removal, stump grinding, and tree planting. And to Mayor TJ, you guys have been awesome. You've given us probably another 50, 60,000 every year. We now have our city streets where we can tell you both that they're safe because we are now keeping up with the tree removal. Alex just completed a tree inventory that's showing that we have a need for roughly 25 to 30,000 additional street trees. So we're going to get creative working with the U.S. Forest Service on basically, due to climate change, there's probably a good chance we can get some additional money. But again, Mayor, your CDBG money of $100,000 a year, it's gone a long way in tree planting in these neighborhoods that need it. On recreation, we've requested funds for playground repair, portable soccer nets, bleachers, tennis court repairs, basketball rims, and tennis nets. And the residents should know, we know where we have needs in the city. No one is being ignored in the city. There were some unfortunate comments made over the last 2 weeks, and I'm glad to see that Kathy Brown was on early. I think she can attest that we work with every neighborhood council in the city, and the neighborhood councils are a vital pipeline to the park commission as we make these repairs. And so no one is ever ignored. And but we look forward to maybe some additional funds to do those maintenance items. As veterans in Franconia, people are thrilled, Mayor and TJ, that the bunkers are being rebuilt. We've got a great firm doing that work, being overseen by the Capital Asset Department, but that's all moving very good. And to our green superintendents, I think we got the best 2 green superintendents in the country. They do an awesome job. When you look at what other municipal forces spend, we have a limited budget, but we got the job done, and they just do a great job.
Hey, Pat, just to let you know, on the golf courses, I've already heard it already. I'm not much of a golfer, but I've already heard rave reviews. People are so happy that we're doing the bunkers, and we do have some top-notch municipal courses on forestry, and we're going to look into it. We'll get those stump grinding calls, so we're going to look into that because that does come in periodically. Appreciate the trees taken down, our new trees planted, but the stump's still there. So we'll take a look at that.
That would be great. Then our park maintenance, because when you consider, I think last year we did about $12 million improvements. The year before was 8. This year we're at 16. We've requested 16 additional people to be added to the districts. With all this work and improvements, it's creating more work, but at the same time, it's a way to create more jobs for city residents that live in the city. So we would love to work with finance and finding a way if we can. And it's also been as a result, I know, Mayor, you've made a good connection with the sheriff. We're reducing, in the end, 2 sheriff crews. One is due to a retirement. And there's less availability from the sheriff's department for the inmates right now due to the COVID. So this is another reason why we need to look at these positions being added to our budget.
Yeah, can I ask on that, so that we would do some bit of a reduction with some of the subcontracting we have going out?
Yeah, so where we're going to be losing,
it'll be hybrid then.
The retirement from the sheriff crew, that individual did a lot of our roadside debrushing and so forth. So Alex and Pete, we're working on getting our what's that mower called? The Tiger mower operational. Alex has someone out on comp. We want to, when that person comes back, we want to put that particular person on the Tiger mower, and that's probably how we would answer that need for debrushing. And we're going to try to work with Stockford School of Agriculture and STIC to see if there's a way that we can get those students out maybe 4 times a year to do some special project debrushing. So again, we're just trying to get creative of how we replace that, that crew that we lost. But the other way too is if we could get these positions added to the budget.
And I know once COVID, we could think this COVID-19, Sheriff Coach, I think the residents of his facility will be available again, but I know that's been very trying now because of COVID. So we're making it do as best we can, but hopefully once we complete this COVID-19, they'll continue to be an asset too as we start to do some more hybrid type stuff.
So other requests on the park side, we're always doing environmental cleanups. We're down to the Weston Park project. I've been talking to TJ and Tom Ash about that and how do we streamline the overall effectiveness of our environmental cleanups, working with economic development. We're looking at our lakes and ponds environmental study, which goes hand in hand with the organic lawn care program. We've requested additional funds for that. The 20,000 we're getting for Riverfront Park, that's going to go to turn that park into all organic, and being there the Connecticut River, it's the right thing to do. We've had a request for increase in small equipment and tools. Ball field renovations are critical right now. Our lips and our infields are getting to the point they're getting a little dangerous. When you get that ground ball in there, you know that playing for Commerce. So we got to find a way to get those infields done just for safety of the players. We have a request for citywide painting of lines in the parking lots, Forest Park road paving, the new gazebo for the Forest Park picnic grove, and then we have a list. The trucks, I would say we probably haven't kept up as good of the trucks as we have with the vans and facilities. I would say our average age for trucks is probably 16 years in parks. Not complaining, we are getting them, but maybe some of this money could be go for that. The other request we have for snow removal in the districts, our Kubotas are getting very old, so Pete wants to go to Bobcats for machinery to do one per district for snow removal. And then basically we keep up with our dam safety reports. And then lastly, we brought it up last year, the wildfire prevention program. That's something that Alex is going to be working with the U.S. Forest Service on. Why don't you give them a quick update, Alex, on how that conversation with the Forest Service?
Sure. So we are coordinating with the U.S. Forest Service on a research program where they're trying to identify new ways to manage urban forests, which means basically wooded areas within cities and urban areas. And so that project is very specific, but it sort of brought along this broader question of how are communities managing their urban woodlands. And there's not a lot of good information on that, and there's not a lot of good guidance provided by the U.S. Forest Service on that topic. So we we're brainstorming in a separate session with some of the U.S. Forest Service researchers. And we've decided we're going to work towards using Springfield as a model and developing sort of a menu of management options that cities can use to manage their urban forests, whether it's to promote wildlife, recreation, reduce forest fire hazard, and just promote healthy, safe urban forests. So I'm really excited about it. They had an internal meeting yesterday, and I'm waiting to hear about the results of what they were discussing. But it's just really exciting that the U.S. Forest Service is looking to Springfield to use as a model for this program, which eventually will be distributed nationwide.
So I would ask you, when you're driving down like Bay Street, look into Blunt Park, you'll see all the down material, the slash. Those are all from that 2011 snowstorm. But now that they've been sitting there for 10 years, it's dry, it's just ready to burn, and I'm not trying to scare people, but we need to take notice because that could happen here, and we're so close to home. So that's on our #1 list with the congressman as well. We actually have a call to the U.S. Forest Service. They're halfway through their budget year, we're gonna see, do they have $1 million available that they could earmark towards Springfield this fiscal year? Because it's probably a $5 to $8 million problem citywide, and so that means we are gonna need the federal assistance to get this forest land cleaned up. But we had a couple fires earlier this spring, and they went pretty quick, and again, it's Mother Nature caused it in 2011, but we've got to start addressing it, and we think we've got the right people around the table.
Commissioner Alvey, Fire Commissioner Cali has mentioned that with the brush fires and the tree management, forest management, that a lot of our, we have some great green space and forestry areas, parks, but they're near residential areas. So people might say, what's the big deal? Well, it is a big deal, because you're going to manage and get that debris out of there within reason. So when sometimes these brush fires start, it won't go into a residential areas. And I know Johnny Appleseed, big loan areas will be helpful to us too. So on that, thank you, Alex. Yeah.
So on the questions, I think I answered question number 1 on the reduction of the sheriff crew. So, and again, for finance, the mayor's decided only to cut 2. So we'll work with Aaron to resubmit those correct numbers to you for next week. Question 2 on how many mows. Currently, we're budgeted for 16. You have a 32-week growing season, so our request is to do 25 mows, and then that way you can really clean up. And I think we've added a request for an additional fall cleanup. Right now, you're only doing 1 fall cleanup, and it's very difficult to gather all those leaves in 1 cleanup. I would have requested 16 positions.
TJ's question.
Just as it relates to the 16 positions you're looking for, is there a way we can reduce our outsourced contract for cleanup?
We could look at that. We had a separate proposal for creating those mowing crews. So that wasn't included with this request. So we can give you those numbers as well.
Well, I'll sit down with you and my team sometime in the next week to get a sense of both those requests of the districts and for mowing.
Right. So it's for those 16 that we requested. That's just to keep up with the daily park maintenance.
Okay.
And then so I guess I answered number 3 with that answer. And then on the organic lawn care program, it's going well. We get calls probably 2 to 3 times a month from other communities wanting to replicate what we're doing here. And I just can't, there's a good article on synthetic fertilizers. I'll send it out to you just so you know for your own houses. It's really detrimental to the soil and to the overall environment. Then you requested the top 3 budget requests for our department. I would say 1 would be the new crews, 2 would be the equipment, and then the request for the Veterans Clubhouse roof. It's just in really poor condition, and it's gone beyond being able to patch it. And then finally, the number 6, now that schools are back in session, you were requesting information on the recreation program. So we stayed remote only because with the school district, they're kind of staying hybrid at this point. But our goal is hopefully by the fall, maybe we could create a fall summer concert series. We would like to do movies in the park for July and August because we really averaged about 500 per session. So that falls in the governor's guidance. And then our goal is to be back in session with after school homework help. Paul has been working with Lydia so we can complement the work that the school department's doing with their after school program. So we think we've developed a good after school homework help and open gym program by working with the school district. So I think we've put in the request for funding that as well. And that's come up by the city council as well as a kind of a hot topic item as far as, so we just couldn't do it under COVID. But again, you and TJ have given us the resources that I think we've done a good job getting the gyms open where they need to be open.
I think we in discussions with Helen, we need to get back down to yellow, and I think if we can sustain that yellow for 2 to 3 weeks consistently, and we're trending towards green, then I think we start to see what we can do to open up outside recreational bring back some outside recreation and obviously interior recreational, but we have to stay 2, maybe 3 weeks in the yellow, and that will give us confidence that we can start the last, the second to last phase before we move back into the green.
Great, so that's it. So the only thing I can't share with you today is our wildlife pictures. That always gets everybody pretty excited, so we'll send those down separately too. But the bobcats are still here in the park.
Well, why don't we harness them instead of buying those other bobcats? That's all. All right, everybody, thank you so much for what you continue to do and your families too. Staying healthy and do me a favor, have a great weekend. God bless. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate all your support as well. Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much to Focus Springfield, Brendan and crew. Appreciate it. You've been very instrumental in being able to keep city and public meetings and transparency going. Thanks, Brendan. Hey, you shaved your beard too, huh, a little bit. Looks good. This will conclude the budget hearings with DPW and planning and economic development. I want to thank, again, as I always do, as we open up the award-winning finance team headed by CFO TJ Plant and Deputy Capital Lindsay Hackett, Melanie, and the rest of the financial team that's here. I also want to thank each and every one of my cabinet heads, the rank and file, and their families. Many who have been with me since day one of this COVID-19, many on the front lines, and many in back office work that is necessary to keep city government going. I've always said tested and true through a number of natural man-made disasters. This budget will encompass about $750 million. The budget, TJ will get more into that with the numbers. We will continue to be efficient, effective, strategic, and compassionate in the way we put across our city services. And as we move forward to defeat this COVID-19, we will look also to invest. Director Sidoli, Chris, and to your team, you guys and your ladies kept going from day one. Trash got picked up, streets got plowed, services, DPW running, continue with COVID-19. I deeply appreciate that. Nice. So with that, I don't know if there's any city councilors on at all. I'm seeing them and to an opening statement. Kathy Brown, you're consistent. Let me tell you, East Springfield Neighborhood Council, you're always on there. We appreciate that. I'll turn it over to CAFO TJ Plant for some opening comments, and then move to you, Director Sidoni.
So, not that you guys haven't done this before. This year, we're asking you guys to present your budget requests to the mayor, as we always do. Go through some highlights of the department, things that you want us to be aware of. Go through the budget request as it is with level service, and then if there's any additions and stuff that the department is looking to make, or if there's needs that we really need to be aware of. It's your time to present and just give us kind of all the good stuff that DPW has been doing.
We're not a board.
Well,
Not everybody can be bored.
everybody's award winning in mine.
Do you get a paycheck every Friday? That's your
I'm just going to pass out something here. It's a copy of basically the same information you have, but it's got written all of the answers with regard to the mayor's questions in there, so we have them as well. So I'll just pass those around to everybody, so you can all have copies of the stuff there. Mayor, thank you. And really the first thing that I wanted to say about our department, as you mentioned, we've been working full time. Everybody's been working full time throughout the entire pandemic. Basically for the administrative staff too, we've been working full time, and it wasn't an edict for me but everybody felt the same way, that we could not have our staffs out in the field working every day and us be working every other day. We were here, and everything went very, very well throughout the department. Probably the most difficult thing that we dealt with throughout this past year was just hiring. Yeah. We had a lot of people, some people quit, some people retired, some people were terminated. But we probably dealt with 15 or so vacancies in the department for the past year, which I know I mentioned to you a while ago, that some of the hiring processes that we've been dealing with are a little cumbersome, that I would like to do some modification to. And as an example, if we lose a foreman and we have to hire 3 or 4 people going down the totem pole, that probably takes us 8 to 9 months to do. So we end up being shorthanded for a long period of time. Obviously, from our standard stuff that we've done throughout the year with regard to paving and our maintenance, we are in the process of initiating a new compost agreement with Covanta, following the fire that happened up there. So we're working on that right now. We've initiated a number of projects throughout the city. South Branch Parkway, Bay and Berkshire Cottage Harvey is starting construction in the coming weeks. And I think the biggest one for us was negotiating a new long-term deal for our recycling. Yeah. And I know it's one of the questions that you have, and Greg was tremendous help in putting that together. Not to jump ahead to the question, but the city of Springfield by far has the best agreement in Western Mass. And basically, I think with any other community that I've seen, while we're paying $119 a ton to get rid of recycling, our revenue rate last month was $77, right?
72.77.
72.77. I knew there were sevens in there. So a net of like $46, and it's been coming down. And we put together our A and B. The market values for various commodities that we deal with. We put that together. The standard ones that we use, that would have been used, I think the last time we looked at that, we would still probably be in the $30, $35 range of getting money back. And the DOT, or the DEP's contract would have been for $146.
Yeah, we went on our own.
We went on our own.
All the communities wanted us to DEP play the big dog.
So once we did that, we got a lot of phone calls from communities. A lot of the other communities in Western Mass that are single stream, just all they did was go to a vendor and negotiate a contract. They didn't do a bidding. Basically, they waited too long is what they did. Each one of them just went to somebody and negotiated.
And they were held over the barrel.
They were held over the barrel. Nobody's even close to to what we have there. With regard to our budget this year, the way that it was presented to us really didn't have too many issues with it. We did a handful of corrections in the budget because, as we know, Chris can't add, so we have to make sure
he's going to make sure he has the wrong name.
Well, I keep shooting on his porch light, so he knows so it's not. We made a number of modifications.
We're just joking to the viewers.
It's fun. Yeah. Made a number of adjustments that, as we did that, we had conversations obviously with Chris and just to make sure that the numbers were correct when we submitted them. And it's essentially a level funded budget as we went through. Probably one of the big things last year is that we took a severe cut in fuel. Fuel prices were going crazy low. Now they're starting to go back up again. So that was a little bit of an issue, but we made the modifications to the budget on both the enterprise fund and general fund as well. A couple of some of the problems that we're dealing with, obviously we're going to need to do some union contracts that are going to have to get done. So obviously modifying that in there. Overtime is it's kind of a crazy thing right now because when you're short people, you end up spending a lot of money on overtime. So overtime numbers are kind of blown out of the water, but overall salaries are in decent shape. We're going to be moving some money out of salary in the enterprise fund to cover some costs, but in general, our salary line items are in decent shape. And the only other concern that we had mentioned in ours was in the budget and as a proposed addition as a wish list is vehicle replacements.
Yeah.
We're 3 years behind on doing vehicle replacements, and I think we probably do need to get the vehicle committee back together again, so we can start looking. I started looking at it a couple weeks ago because I want to spend the money that TJ's getting. We have 620 or 30 vehicles and pieces of equipment in the city, and over 150 of them either have more than 100,000 miles or are 21 years old, meaning they're 1999 or earlier in the city. So sometimes you see some odd-looking vehicles driving around. With COVID, our department and other departments all went to one-person cars, so there was a lot of vehicles that hadn't been used by certain people in a while that now are being used, so we're getting into a lot of maintenance. And that's kind of on the general fund side. On the enterprise fund side, we're working through it now, but we ran into a hiccup this year on the workers' comp. It was just internal in the city about charging. So our budget wasn't looking very well well, it still doesn't, but we got to work through, people were being charged on our enterprise fund comp that shouldn't have been, so we're working through that. The overtime as well, and most of the COVID stuff that hit us in the city of people missing work was on the enterprise fund side, and more specifically in November and December. So when we were losing a lot of people to that, it obviously had an impact on our yard waste, etc. The two items when we were talking about overtime, enterprise fund and general fund side, we do a lot of work for Spirit of Springfield and other entities that are unreimbursed, and we don't get money, even if there is money coming from the city, we don't get it, goes back into the general fund. But 4th of July pancake breakfast, Puerto Rican festival, jazz and roots, raise a boat, balloon parade, neighborhood cleanups, Earth Day, things like that, that are just, we do all the services, but there's no compensation with it. So it ends up being a lot of overtime with that. On the wish list side, as I mentioned, for vehicles in general fund, we're going to need to, on the solid waste side, we got to get into a better layout of replacing the vehicles. We've obviously, it's like all of a sudden 3 or 4 of them die, and then we're behind the 8 ball. It's taking us 11 months to get a vehicle. So when we ordered them February, we ordered those in February.
Yeah.
February. So we may not see them till October, November. So it's not like buying a Ford Focus where we can get one real quick. We're also going to need to, since we've gotten through the process of the recycling and the trash, all of our barrels are well past their age. We need to do a replacement on those. We need to do more work at some of our landfills, and the previous administration left me with a wonderful unknown that came out of the landfill on Cottage Street, that written into the permit that after 11 years of closure, the maintenance referred back to the city of Springfield. So that was one of those out in the middle of nowhere last year. We got hit with that. We haven't done anything there yet. We've added those numbers into the budget, and it's just basic. It's mowing, it's stormwater monitoring. So it's, I can't remember the number, $60-something thousand. I can't remember the exact number, but something like that. That kind of came out of nowhere last year. We're in the process of negotiating with Cottage Street developers, which is Jerry Gagliarducci. And that's been fine. Jerry's been wonderful to deal with. And Frank Fitzgerald on that. Waste Management was the other entity involved, has not been good to deal with. And they were one, actually, they sent a letter a couple months ago knocking us for our non-participation. We have nothing to do with them. It's with the Cottage Street developer. So they're doing some of the work up there now, so they're just trying to get out of it. So that's kind of the general overview on the budget side. And again, we made all the necessary, I'm going to say, standard corrections to the budget, and we worked through with Chris on those. To jump to your questions, Bear, we mentioned about, your question was about the recycling. And in here basically shows what we're paying for TIPI and what the market value of the revenue is that we're getting back. So the revenue side, hopefully at the end of this year, should be seeing a good number. We have a significant increase. Recycling's gone up 17% throughout the city. Trash has been up 12%. So obviously that little difference, the difference now dealing with, probably an average throughout the year of $60 or $70 a ton net is a lot better than what we are anticipating. But the revenue side, not to say that we don't see it in the department, we don't see it at the budget side for operating. So at the end of the year, hopefully there will be some positive free cash at the end of the year on the enterprise side. But we usually don't figure that out till November, December. So the COVID numbers, as I mentioned, we've seen a 12% increase in trash and 17% increase in recycling. The disposal costs, we've seen a huge increase in the disposal costs. However, a number of months ago, conversations with TJ that we've been approved for the use of the the original CARES 2 pots of the CARES Act money for the excess, basically over fiscal year 19. So Greg and Chris have been working through those numbers. If we didn't have that money, we'd probably be looking at $750,000 between both of them, something like that. So that money's helping us. The timing of putting money back into it is going to be a little difficult when we get into late April, early May, and June, to make sure everything's covered. Now, in the end, everything is covered. It's just a matter of what I don't want to be doing is robbing Peter to pay Paul for 10 cents in late May and early June, and then have the money back in later. So we're watching that every month. I sent around a notice of an issue that we're dealing with on the bulk side that we may have with one of our vendors. So we'll have better information at the end of this month. We think we're getting overcharged, so we've been tracking that. The sidewalk crew, as you mentioned, the sidewalk crew has been fantastic. What it's really turned into is whenever there's a complaint, it goes out and gets taken care of with asphalt right away. And then we've been able to show up, I'm not going to say right away, but within months of people being able to get a new sidewalk. We've probably done hundreds so far.
We've done 100 or so full sidewalk repairs.
Yeah.
And last year with the heavy winds in October, we had maybe 2 dozen spots we had to repair the sidewalks from up to the trees. So
Yeah.
they did a lot last year.
Yeah, we had a number of those. We finished one on that Goldie.
Oh my God. This is a beautiful sidewalk. House is a corner lot.
Yeah.
Did the whole sidewalk. 2 months later, the tree came down and ripped up.
It's just one of those you look at it, but it has been tremendous. And it's the residents have been.
They love it.
They love it. They love it.
That's why
Absolutely.
we wanted to put in the budget.
Absolutely.
Just, Chris, I know on the old team and the men and women were out there every day. Noticed, the trash doesn't get picked up on the streets, don't get plowed. That's when Mary and Joe noticed it. And that didn't happen here in the city of Springfield. So TGI, we understood what had to be done to make sure that basic city services continue to move forward. And a lot of times, I know Chris, unfortunately, called over the week when there's a traffic light that's out or this or that. So we did what we had to do to make sure that city services continue, even with the COVID, it's not only COVID-19.
And in general, with the residents that I've been dealing with over the past year, their biggest complaint about trash is you're usually here at 8 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock, where are they? You know, give us a day, we'll get it picked up. A question with regard to private ways, which is about 30 seconds before I walked in here, I got a call from Orlando, wants to know if any of the money that we're receiving from the federal government can be used for that. And the easy answer right now is we have no idea.
Yeah, we're trying to drill down and see what the monies, we're going to come and meeting with the Treasury Department, I think as early as next week.
Yeah.
Where the monies can specifically be spent, because we want to make sure we adhere to those guidelines. And it is something that, first with you and TJ, we spoke of, and we'd like to tackle some of these private ways, but you can't use the Chapter 90 funds.
Correct.
And we have to identify other funds, and do that, then we will.
And what I always tell people is when we're doing private ways, we do the best ones, because those are the easiest ones with the minimal amount of money that can turn them into public ways so that we can get some more money. As I told people, building, what is it, Nishon Street. I use that as an example because that's the one that Orlando is always looking for. To do 600 feet of road is, $750,000.
Hey, why don't you explain to Chris, the viewing public, that, first of all, many of these private ways came many, many years ago before our time.
Correct.
That they were, at the time the city was allowing those, the developers were not responsible, the sewage and drainage. And so it's not as simple as, well, why can't director Sidoli just repave my street? Would you explain that this is a
Sure.
whole thing from curb to curb and sewage, water drain out?
A majority of the city was subdivided in 40s and 50s, and I use Pine Point and 16 acres as the best example. These areas were a massive subdivision for 100, 200 acres. Developers who came in at that time in the city of Springfield were given two options. They could build a road to public standards, and the residents on those streets received all city services. Then they had the choice of not building it to city standards, and they did not get city services, and their tax rate was different. So they did not get snow plowing, they did not get trash pickup, they had to bring trash to the end of the street, and they did not get mail service. So a lot of the older private ways in the city, you still see the big mailboxes at the end of the street. Over time, through a number of previous administrations, the attitude changed about private ways, that we're going to start trying to build them. Some time ago, through mandate, the city took over all maintenance and all service requirements for private ways. We're picking up trash, we're plowing them, and we're doing the maintenance as best as we can for them. A lot of these private ways, when they were built, are basically just a paved roadway, and using 16 acres as an example of Pine Point, they're decent roadways. They're not in horrible shape where they've been paved, but in a lot of cases, there's either no or limited drainage in the roadway, no curbing, and limited other utilities in some cases as well. So because they were never publicly accepted roadways, technically the city does not own them. The original developer still does, but over time, I always say we've inherited them. Because they are not publicly accepted roadways, any money that comes from the federal government or to the state that comes to the city for paving cannot be used on anything that has not been accepted as a public way in the city, or on any sort of municipal, private, or actual private property. So I can't even take Chapter 90 money and pave a parking lot for a school. So it has to be right of way, and it has to be accepted roadway. People, when they buy homes in the city and they're on a private way, a lot of them don't know it. Every so often, an attorney will contact us who wants to know an up and down, left and right, when he's got somebody who's buying on a private way, what that means. And it's kind of put the kibosh on some sales, but the private ways in the city probably stopped early 2000s at that time. No development is allowed now in the city that is not going to be built to a public way standard. Anything that's being built has to be built to a public way standard, has to have drainage, has to have curbing, has to have lighting, and everything in it so that we, as the DPW, are able to pick up trash and maintain it. Police can get in there and fire can get in there. So we're getting a lot now of these 1 and 2 lot subdivisions at the end of streets where developers are just hoping to put a driveway in. And that's not happening, and it's causing some angst with some developers, but in order for us to get in there, we need to have a good roadway.
We have to do, and again, the housing boom, that came after World War II, and there was a housing boom on it. And the Chapter 9 state funds, which we appreciate, that would take legislative relief if they were going to adjust it for that reason. So that might be something that the State Representative Ramos might look into if they're willing to adjust it. And it might be difficult. I'm sure it's probably been tried to be adjusted before, but we're going to see what type of funds come in if we can start to tackle some of those private ways. So we will. But Chris, before we move on, the average cost to do a private way, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands.
If you're building it from scratch, if it's a dirt road or a millings, to build it up, you're talking $500 to $600 a foot, which gets you to hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a road. A typical private way that is paved, that has drainage in it, for us to just go in and pave and do some minor improvement to it might cost us $80,000. So that was with a comment that I made before, is I'd rather do the better ones. If the city were to give me $1 million, I'd rather do 25 streets than 3. Pick the ones that are, because there's private ways out there that are cut throughs, that take a lot of traffic, that service a lot of residents in the neighborhood, versus some private ways that have 2-3 people on it. Not to discount the 2-3 people, but it becomes the better bang for the buck in the end.
We still service as far as for repairs.
Yes.
To be done with the recent potholes or some grading.
Yes.
So we still do that, and we still plow, we still pick up.
Yes.
Traffic grade, private ways right now.
Well,
I was going to say, every year we go out with the billings that we get from our paving projects. We go out and grade private ways. We get requests all the time, but we do the maintenance on them as well throughout those. And some of them are bad roads in the city. Some of them are very bad dirt roads that are just horrible condition, that people have built nice houses on them with that. And right now in front of us, I want to say it's probably the most residential subdivision projects I've ever seen in the 11 years that I've been here. Everybody's finding square feet where they can build a house right now. And we have a lot.
There's no inventory.
There's no inventory. They're all thinking that if they can get a house built, that they're going to sell it for $300,000. Tinkham Road, off of Tinkham Road up by the Gates Avenue Cemetery.
Yeah.
Somebody is looking at a lot up there. It's going to be like 42 houses, and you look at the land, and God bless them. But there's been more residential development in the last few months, and a lot of it is the 1-2 lots that are that have never been developed. And when you get out there and look at them, you can kind of tell why they've never been.
The bottom line here is that we're going to, if we can, if there's expendable money, we're going to look at it and try to do as many as we can within reason. But I thought it was important to spend time to explain to the viewing public, and thank you, Chris, for bringing up the history of how this occurred. And you're right, since the early my days on the city council, we check everything has changed, and if you're going to build, you have to build to requirements on it. But on the fleet, we've spoken about that, and also maybe getting back the that committee and your needs on it, and the trash. It takes that long. I know Mr. Cal, the DJ, will say to me too, with fire trucks, it can take 6 to 8 months. So even what's the quickest turnaround if the T's are crossed, the I's are done on the waste?
It's
still 8 months.
8 months, yeah.
They have a schedule where they do go into production, and some we could order now, but they're not gonna start
Okay, so
building them.
That's just.
That's just normal.
That's just normal, it's the way that it is. The issue that I want to avoid moving forward, especially with this, is I'd rather order them while we have trucks in good working condition versus waiting for them to die and then go, oh, shit, we need to order stuff and now you're behind the 8 ball. Did I say that out loud?
He
Leave
said,
that out, right?
he said, oh, sugar.
Of course, we gotta figure that out, because the fire department, we got them on a replacement schedule where they do a lease to own for the fire trucks.
Yeah,
And we do 1 or 2 every year.
yeah, which would be,
So maybe that's what we got.
yeah, because they are 330
Trash trucks are 310, 330.
something.
You got the hydraulics, you got the, besides bringing the hydraulic lifts.
They're 3 something a piece, because we bought 3 fully automated, and we bought 2 rear loaders, which were slightly cheaper. It's just because it's 3 different vendors. It's Mac who makes the truck,
Yeah,
and then McNeilis who is doing the equipment and everything, so it goes all over. It literally goes all over the United States as it's being
No, we
made.
gotta figure it out, because I mean, the fire engines cost anywhere between 800 and 1.2 million, so.
We'll use a fire truck.
Same lead time. They're prettier than your truck, so that's why we buy them.
Wow.
DJ, are you watching right now? I know we talked, I say it, Chris and I, Director Snow and I say every COVID-19 city hospital press conference, everybody. Again, DPW is in desperate need for CDL drivers, and I guess it's been going throughout the state too, the traffic signal technician. So your strategy there, I know TJ and I told you, if you have to temporarily, sub out or whatever we have to do.
Which we're in the process of
Our
doing.
the public is safe and sound, we need to do, but do you see that turning around at all, Chris?
Well, what we did, Mayor, as I talked to you a few weeks ago, what we've just done is we were able to get the requirements for the position modified.
Yeah, okay.
So when we did that, I met with Bill, we got that all set. I just need a signature from the union.
Okay.
And really what it is, the people who are signal techs here now learn the job by being taught working here. And there's certifications that are required. So what we wanted to do was we exhausted the list, and when I say exhausted list, there is a list for civil service, but that was exhausted right away. We advertised 3 times. We really got nobody even close. So we modified it so that if we were to hire somebody internally, they get 1 year to get their certifications. If they don't get it, they're done. So I got that all set with Bill. It just needs to be signed. And then once that is signed, then we post it internally, and we'll be able to get some people on board. Because obviously if we're dragging people from the inside, backfilling the other positions inside DPW are a lot easier right now than the traffic signal techs with that. So we did, as a follow-up, when we made a pretty good media blitz about the drivers.
Yeah, you got
We got a number of them, and there was a handful of people who have added to the list, and we're doing interviews next week.
Good.
The 14th and the
14th.
22nd.
Yeah, so we got some interviews coming up with some people. But all I hear on the radio and all I see everywhere are signs and banners out for drivers, for bonuses. Performance Food Group has them all over the place. I was up Page Boulevard, all the businesses there have them all over the place. Dave's Automotive.
$1,500 bonus.
Yeah, Dave's offering 3,000.
Dave's offering.
Dave was
3,000?
offering, yeah, Dave's one on Pasco, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's $3,000. Yeah, so they're having an extremely difficult time finding them. And what, at first I thought, well, maybe people just don't want to work for the city. When we were trying to get people signed up for snow plowing, these companies couldn't find anybody. We had businesses that would have 8 to 10 trucks with us who were coming in with 3 or 4 and just saying, I can't find drivers. And even if I can't find drivers, I don't have the confidence that they're going to show up for a lot of different reasons. So,
Well, you guys did a good job with the trash, and every day you're out there, and then snow plowing, you did a very good job, and you put out the snow map for the public, and You did a good job. You know, the complaints will come very easily anytime you won't get the path back.
Yeah.
Good job.
Not, you know, the standard complaints of, we always love it, you never come to my street and put down sand or salt, and then you get the call, and they
How
go
come there's
to,
so much? You know,
when are you gonna come sweep up all the sand that you put down? So.
Speaking of that too,
Yeah.
once, 311 is always our clearinghouse where you call, you know, always feel free to call, in my office, but, it's pothole season, DPW's out there, please, 311, they will get out there and fix it. Chris, these unfunded mandates, we get whacked all the time.
Yes.
Flooding, control improvements, they're unfunded federal mandates. Where do we stand on some of these things? This is the flood control.
The nifty stuff is in pretty decent condition with the work that we have to do in the city. We're a little bit ahead of the curve. And we're ahead of the curve because we had to do a bunch of stuff 4 or 5 years ago that was really phase 2 work. So we did a lot of that. The flood protection stuff, we kind of have 3 sections of the city. We have the Mill River, we have the Connecticut River South, and the Connecticut River North. With the work that we did over the past 2-3 years, the Connecticut River South and the Mill River is basically in very good shape. We have a dam that is down behind what I still call the Old Tavern Restaurant on Mill Street. The crematory that's there now. There's a dam there that really doesn't have a huge impact on our system, but we were planning on taking that out, and that's kind of been on hold for money reasons, but the rest of the corridor has been done. We have one thing that we have left to do, which is a connection, literally a connection of a pipe underneath the rail line that I had sent an email over to you last week there. Amtrak has been worse than horrible on this, and so I've stepped into them a few times, and we still haven't gotten them.
You know what, if we have to, Congressman, Chairman Ritchie can be very helpful to us. Our Amtrak can be very difficult to deal with at times. And on the New England funeral cremation, she is very appreciative.
We met with her, yes.
You worked very well with her. That's a business that she's put her heart and soul into, and she's very appreciative on that.
No,
Mill and the little Locust Street area there.
no, that's been.
But on the other thing with Amtrak, let us know with
I was laughing when you said that, because one of the things that I threatened them is that we would do a notification to the congressman. And like the second I said that, people were calling me up left and right, don't call the congressman. And so I generally hit a nerve, so, and we are supposed to get this week.
That's all right, because if we have to pinch that nerve, we'll pinch that
Yes.
nerve.
Because at the same time, we were in agreement with Amtrak about the money from them for the phase 3 piece.
Yeah.
And we had agreed that we would not go to the DPU to push for the opening at the State Street location. So basically I went back to them and say, look, if you're not gonna hold up your end of the bargain, there's no reason for us to hold up our end of the bargain. So, but we got to the right people, and they're supposed to have all that stuff. So if we don't have it by the end of the day today, we'll make a phone call again tomorrow. So we should have everything on our side.
Snow and ice, you know, we can deficit spend, and I think we're in decent shape, but we're legally allowed to deficit spend, but how do you stand with that?
We'll probably have about $250,000 left.
Okay.
When we, right now, probably in the next 2 weeks or so, we will liquidate all of the contractors. Once we do that, we'll probably have about $250,000 or so left in the budget.
Like sand,
Well, we've already done some.
we filled up the
The shed's all filled, so what we do in the next couple of weeks is we just make sure, is there anything we need to do with any of the vehicles, is there anything else? Because I don't want to hear from somebody in the middle of May that we have to do a $35,000 repair on a plow system. It's like, that's what we needed a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, we've been making sure, because that usually gets frozen mid-April at best, so we should be
you're using it for prep work, for the equipment and stuff.
Yeah, we make sure the equipment's all set, and then when we get going in the fall, we double check to make sure if there's anything that's needed on that as well. So let's see, snow and ice.
The last one is, I know we have the FEMA.
The FEMA.
Yeah.
Yep, we are under design on the South Branch Parkway project. We have a meeting, I think it's next week, Tuesday, concept meeting that we need to present to Springfield Water and Sewer, so that we can get their approval. Where we're doing the work on South Branch by Sergeant Sullivan Park there, the pipe that we need to put in is down 25 feet and it's a 6-foot pipe. And in the road there is the sewer interceptor. So we got to deal with water and sewer on that. The Tiffany Street project is out now for advertisement with consultants. We have a pre-submission conference on Tuesday for that project. So we will have somebody under contract, middle of June for that to move forward. We just got we're having a kickoff meeting. I can't remember, May, is it? I can't remember the date. She said that stuff. Beth sent it yesterday. We're having a kickoff meeting with them, but we already have the paperwork. We got a signed contract back yesterday. So we are in good shape with those. We've made, and just in general, we've made a lot of applications for various grants and other things that we've been awarded that really helped us out in a lot of the design projects.
Thank you for getting, because Richie had asked for, yesterday, I said around before, he wants to know, I asked all the cabinet heads, give me your capital project, because he feels the infrastructure bill will go in the near future. And I said, don't worry, we'll have stuff ready to go so we can plug it into the pipeline.
And as I said, my concern on that is just how it funds down to us.
Yeah.
If it comes through Mass DOT, that's great. And I have no idea of the dollar figure they're talking about statewide, but if they did it based upon, say, a calculation like Chapter 90, that would make me happy.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're a big city, we end up getting a lot of money. What I don't want is, as I said before, is just sit at the state level. They use it for everything, which they did 10+ years.
Congressman Neal, again, when in our meetings and our cabinet meetings, has been very good at trying to work on that, give as much authority to the municipalities, or at least give them some say in it.
And that's why I said if they use Chapter 90, it allows us to do stuff on our own with, not to say minimal oversight, we still have to follow rules and regulations.
So we could call.
But we can do things quicker. We can do it without having to deal with them on everything that, because we could use Chapter 90 money today to build roadways and just use that versus going to Mass DOT and turn it into a project. But we don't want, you don't want to spend that amount of money, when we know we can get it for the state for free. But if we get it under that, the only concern that I end up with is becomes kind of more of a statewide area concern. Prices end up going through the roof, especially if you're dealing with paving and stuff like that here. There's only a couple companies. There's Palmer and the old Lane. Well, Lane is still around. I can't. Eurovia.
Yeah.
Northeast Eurovia, who. So there's only a couple of companies, and Mass DOT will do a lot of work, I'm sure. So those companies around here all of a sudden have this massive lot of work, and then obviously their prices start to go up. So we're trying to monitor that as well.
Chris, can you tell one thing we heard loud and clear? We've been doing it for a number of years, and I appreciate it. Greg, as you know, we put up a number of new traffic signals. I mean, in the Mercy Hospital one, people are so happy about that. I know we have a few more that we've done, some more in the works on high traffic areas. Maybe you can let the viewing public know the traffic signals, new traffic signals that are going on. And we have a page in Berkshire Ave and
Berkshire Cottage. Berkshire Cottage. One of the things that we've done, not just with new traffic signals, but with existing traffic signals, is a lot of timing changes. So we tried to do that to accommodate traffic in certain locations, and that's worked. New intersections with traffic signals, as the mayor mentioned, Cass and Carew for Mercy, which Alphonse loves, by the way.
That's right. That unfortunately, God rest her soul, my mom, Chris's mom, we spent a lot of time with Mercy, and people, we Great. Can we get a traffic? light?
Yeah, every time I get in that building, we toot our horn, and everybody there loves it. Good Cottage in Berkshire and Harvey, that intersection at Cottage that has no traffic signal, will have one. And we are in the process right now of doing a number of warrant studies for problem locations around the city. Page Boulevard, on a couple of them, will be doing some,
Is that by that Brookdale area?
Brookdale is one of them, and Bircham. The only problem right now is we really wanted to wait because we've done warrant studies there before and they fell below the threshold, not by a lot. But anytime in the past year, if you were to do a study, you're not gonna meet it because there's no traffic.
Yeah.
So now that school's back in session.
Because of the COVID-19 traffic. The other thing too, did a great job. I think Jerry Gaglianucci, he did do it and grew up in Six Corners too. And that roundabout where initially people were apprehensive, everybody raised about that roundabout that we did.
I was skeptical, and I love it. I love it.
Traffic flow.
It's perfect for the traffic that's there. It really is. There's not a lot of truck traffic. The vehicles, Tim, another hour, I'll be done.
Another hour?
Another hour.
On a Friday afternoon?
Yeah.
We're just
What work and signal if you're not?
But yeah, we have a lot of planning projects in the works like that. Because one of the things that we do have 3 or 4 projects that have gone through the process of the TIP process with state funding for construction. And now that most of those are done, really the only one that we have on the list, we have 2 of them on the list now. We have the X and we have Garena School. I like to have one at least every year moving forward. So we're going to be looking at a number of other intersection reconstruction projects and traffic analyses and warrant studies throughout the city at intersections.
Well, Chris, you've been very thorough. As usual, teacher, any questions? And the X is coming.
I'm not asking them anymore.
You want me to tell Timmy you need another half hour?
Another half hour, another half, 45 minutes.
All right.
I like that, Pete. I'm not asking questions.
Thank you very much, Director Sintoli and DPW team. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Guys,
Good night
thank
to
you.
you and your families.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. This is, we'll conclude our budget sessions. We have planning and economic development headed by Chief Development Officer Tim Sheen, and building and code and SRA and CDG here. Again, I'm very appreciative of Director Sheen and cabinet heads and the department heads are here. Many who have been with me since day one of this COVID-19, many frontline, many back office stuff, which has been very, very essential. So I'm very appreciative to you and your staff and your families, because I know it's trying times. I also want to thank Director Sheehan, who's been a very good conduit when we're able to get this CARES money and federal money coming in. He's helped out many, if not all, of the departments. We've been laser focused, especially helping our small businesses, tackling the homeless, making sure they were okay through Helen Carlton Harris, and a number of other things. And the Commissioner Desolette and his team of inspectors, they were out and about, especially in emergency situations, code enforcement with David Cotter, and Brian Cotter's another, Chris Moscow, and Kathy, behind the scenes work that was being done on it. We've continued to keep developments going, and economic development going, and we want to prepare a solid foundation, so once we defeat this COVID-19, we'll be able to move forward. And as I said in the other budget hearings, unlike some other municipalities and towns across the Commonwealth, for whatever reason, we've been able to keep everything working and services going, and many of the buildings open, where they never close, via appointment or emergency situation on it. So with that, I don't, Billy, any city councils on at all? No. Okay, then I'll turn it over to TJ, any opening comments? We'll turn over to Director Sheehan. Which divisions he wants to go first?
Great, yeah, so this is not new to anybody. This is the process we've been going the last number of years. This is an opportunity for the departments to share the highlights of what's happened in the recent fiscal year, or and then kind of what the department's looking to do, and then if there's any wish list add items. I know there's a lot of projects we were doing great economic development wise up until the COVID hit the pause button, but we're going to be gearing up to hit the restart button. So this is your opportunity to kind of present to the mayor your vision in the next few years or so.
Great. Well, clearly, as TJ and the mayor indicated, COVID had a major impact in terms of economic development in the city. In terms of looking from new projects to basically figuring out, how we ultimately were going to assist existing businesses to stay in business and ultimately bridge them over to the other side of COVID. I anticipate that, over the next few months, that work is going to have to continue to happen and prepare businesses for some of the long-standing impacts of COVID. And, through what we have remaining in the CARES Act, we certainly will be continuing to do that. And then also working with Mayor and the city finance staff to figure out, how we can deploy the resources that are coming in a strategic and effective way to leverage the greatest result for the city. So that work is definitely going to continue. But throughout the COVID period, and the mayor and I have had a number of discussions about this, we have not, lifted our foot off of the planning lever. And we have advanced two significant master plans, one for the blast zone area in Chestnut Street, and then the other looking at the area immediately around the Convention Center, Main Street, and MGM. And we have completed that planning work, and we're moving into implementation. So we just recently had a review of that plan with the Gaming Commission. Everyone seems supportive of moving, in the direction that we're talking about in terms of redeploying the uses in and around the casino to be more pedestrian amenities in the area, ultimately having more ground floor activation in a number of those businesses, and looking at how we leverage the resource of the convention center, the Mass Interest Center, because I think when you look at it, that segment of the market in terms of what we can get from meeting space and convention actually it economically is as important as what we're kind of moving to from the MGM Springfield. The more people that we're bringing into downtown to actually utilize our hotels, our restaurants, all of that is critically important. And obviously that market went dark for over a year, but we have to figure out a way to bring both the market back and to try to figure out, the convention center isn't a new development. It has limitations within the marketplace. So in terms of, like, for example, meeting space. So what we've tried to design the master plan on is how do you look at the area immediately around the convention center and try to populate that with uses that can actually make up for some of the deficiencies that the center currently has and make it more competitive with our regional competition, which ultimately is Hartford. So, those are the long-term plans that, we've advanced out. And obviously, there's properties immediately around the casino that have been put into foreclosure, that are underutilized. You got to take a look at all of those and figure out, how we can reposition that more effectively. If that, would require short-term, city intervention on those properties, but ultimately get them back out to the private sector as quickly as possible.
And I want to thank you to Tim and the team, giving for Congressman on the capital projects for when the infrastructure bill comes. I know for the viewing public, you hear about a lot of mega projects, but a lot of times you don't hear about a lot of neighborhood stuff that Director Sheen and the whole team has done. Whether it's a first-time home buyers program, which is just gone fantastic, and a lot of Latinas of buying homes, and also just announced them at night, helping out those beautiful Victorians, workforce housing that we have done. Brian and the efforts, Timmy, on helping out small business, but small businesses in the resident business district residential areas that we're doing. So we're doing a balance of not only dealing with the mega projects, keep those going, but we're also going to continue to do with neighborhood improvements.
Well, that's an important component there, because actually as part of this budget request, we increased our budget with regards to neighborhood plans.
Yep.
And consultants for $25,000 more. And quite frankly, I'm looking at that, specifically part of a segment of that funding to do more neighborhood commercial district planning. And, those commercial districts, many of them have been disproportionately impacted by COVID, and their recovery, I think, is going to be critical in guiding a plan as to, how the economics of those neighborhoods, with commercial centers are going to be able to come back.
Timmy, just maybe you mentioned a couple of the new we're finishing up some other, we just had a good update meeting on 31, which we're getting a couple of new projects that we have on the horizon that we're going to be moving on next year with COVID-19.
Yeah, so the dining district is another issue, in terms of bringing that market back. So we're looking at, moving back into trying to assist, restaurants that are looking to come back into the area. In terms of larger projects, we're looking back at the York Street site and trying to figure out how to put that back out. We have Gemini that's coming in. We're spending some time going through that proposal. At the end of the day, we have some questions to talk with the developer about on that. So we've scheduled him to come back in and do a presentation with the committee. I think there's, in terms of looking at new projects, that I don't think our work, for example, at Union Station, in terms of figuring out, how Union Station gets fully occupied has been completed yet. And we need to come back to that and begin to address, how that gets fully, how the potential of that project gets fully met.
Hopefully with the east-west rail too, which will be down the road though.
And I think that there's some new opportunities as, Union Station comes online, Wayfinders comes online, for that northern section of Main Street to try and figure out, you know, what's happening there. I also think that we've been looking at how we're dealing with housing within the neighborhoods and taking on new initiatives to deal with addressing exterior improvements to the housing, like we talked about in terms of the big night. But I think we're also going to look at trying to deploy similar types of issues in terms of improving the housing stock across the city and each of the neighborhoods.
And I want to thank you too. We did the prime to pump. I know we had 3 rounds of over $1 million, $2 million funding. We also, which we're going to continue to do to help people stay in their homes or their rental property, help them pay through Wayfinders or a conduit, help them pay their mortgages, utilities, and rents. And then, Timmy, maybe the last thing before I turn it over to TJ. On the visionary look, we've spoken about this too. Because of COVID-19, physical plant of office space is going to change. Whether everyone comes back or people are going to now know they can work remotely. And I know you thought about some strategies on that. This is mainly, the downtown governmental entertainment and business district. And so look, people know the view about that. We are planning for this and how we can, jumpstart it once this COVID-19 is over.
Well, there's clearly going to be an impact to the commercial real estate market, and I think what we're trying to do is to make that as soft a landing as possible, so that there's not this jarring impact both to the city and to the property owners. And we're trying to figure out how best to deploy the resources that we might have in order to stabilize that marketplace in the most efficient way possible. But the reality of the situation is that remote work has now been accepted within the marketplace, and the unfortunate issue is that it got accepted in such a compressed period of time that now the market needs to deal with it in terms of the commercial real estate market, and not having a 5 or 10 year window to anticipate it. It's just all happening all at once. So the real estate market's being asked to respond to this in such a compressed period. And it's just front and center. But I think, our obligation is to try and figure out how best to have that, have it be, to assist the marketplace to be able to get to a soft landing, as I said, that will allow for the market to recognize over time the changes that have impacted it because of COVID.
And we're going to continue to, and we're hopeful, again, we got to see crossing our T's, dotting the I's of the federal money coming in, whether with the SRA, responsible develop Springfield working in, the prop up some more properties, set the table for those difficult properties with a brownfield, so that, and then to create a good 4-letter word, jobs, 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 which should hopefully spin off to the local businesses and the vendors. But
Mayor, as you and TJ know, we're constantly out in the market looking for grant opportunities to assist the efforts that we've been advancing. Whether it be improvements to public open space or to actually do capital improvement projects or infrastructure projects, and quality of life projects in general. Not too in the short term, we're going to be advancing the lighting down in Main Street, like we have done on Worthington Street. So, those quality of life projects like Pinch Park and things like that go a long way to improving the overall character and environment.
And I know you have about the arts and culture and the mural stuff that we do, that they're reflecting the city or tastefully done, that it represents, so that's important there too.
And I think one of the other things, just to mention on the new projects, it's part of the Convention Center Main Street Master Plan. One of the most significant components of that are the improvements to the garage and also the issues around Court Square.
Yeah.
And all of the improvements to Court Square, looking at First Church and everything like that as well.
I'm glad you brought up, because those are projects people said would never get done.
That's correct.
Court Square is happening. The parking garage will happen. Union Station has happened. MGM has come in, the CRC, so.
And all of those, unify together to support each other. The improvements to Court Square are going to strengthen the 31 Elm development. The improvements relative to the Civic Center garage are going to strengthen the whole area in terms of being a more reliable and efficient parking resource for the whole area. And then, as part of that plan, we're looking at Bruce Landon Way being a much more activated use, so that pre and post events.
Such as Fenway, what Fenway does.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
So hold on a second. That's Chris Signoli. He said, can he come and do it?
Just
I hope you're watching, Chris, right now. I'm going to teach you.
The only question is more that's, Tim, you and I and Richie Allen, the Board of Assessors should sit down and strategize, because we've been talking a lot about the commercial values downtown. And that may actually not even be felt for 3 or 4 years, right? And we lost it all in a year, but the way we do taxes, the way we look at property values is a year behind us. And
well, and it's a struggle for the owners as well, because, folks are locked into leases for a period of time, and you might not be realizing the impacts of that until those leases ultimately come up and then the space is turned out.
so we have some creative ideas and stuff we've been discussing. I know you and Richie have been discussing some creative, so let's put our heads together and continue to generate that list.
Billy's, there's no councils on, right? So no. There, so I'll ask Director Sheen now if he wants to, housing, building, and code side. See, Commissioner?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to speak for Steve, but the budget for code is primarily salary and benefits. I think there's 2 issues that Steve and I have talked about that I think we would want to make you aware of, that would want to have further discussion on. One is that there's a desperate need for more vehicles in the department.
Everything is. I'm gonna get that down.
Because at this point, we're bringing people on that we don't have vehicles for. And then the other issue is the automation of and being able to do online permitting. I think that we can move forward over the course of the next year to bring that online, working together, that'd be great. But other than that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
Thank you, Director Sheen. Commissioner Dessa, Steve?
Tim covered pretty much most of it. We have a level funded budget.
Don't say that, because Christian Nolan want to jump in.
Yeah. One of the great things is our past meeting with TJ, and we agreed to fill the positions that were vacant. That's going to be good for the 3 positions.
Yeah, I think they get those filled, and we're looking at the salary amongst peer positions across the.
You said they're each on it.
Yeah, sorry.
So, we got a meeting with Bill Mahoney, and we can do that. We're really hopefully taking a good deep dive at looking at the issues that conflict council involved, or especially the building department, building inspectors. They're a unique barrel that we try to pick from, and it's just not available to us right now. The residency issue with the I think there's 4 steps there. What happens, we train people up. I put 2-3 years into these people, they get their certification. They're not sticking around for 10 years to get that 4th step. Our 4th step is probably, I think if you look at it, there's a good market rate step. Yep. But the way the climate is right now, nobody sticks around for that long for climate. So.
You seem to have that problem, Commissioner, whether it's with your licensed building commissioners or with a Dave's crew, the college for employment enforcement, retention.
Yeah, Dave's crew has been, it's a little easier to hire them within that practice, just because we have a lot of rental property in the city. But it's still because the construction market is so strong right now, they're not looking at these positions either. They're looking at a good rental property manager that knows when he's gonna get paid more.
Okay.
Until this market collapses, I'm not gonna have much opportunity.
So the vehicles, I'm glad you brought up the vehicles, because everyone raising for vehicles.
Yeah,
we rely on the DPW to get the schedule going, but sometimes just your mileage doesn't get you to the top, but there's other. So we're gonna bring back a vehicle review committee that's actually gonna be able to take into account other factors, like to make sure that you have the vehicles. Like, there's nothing worse than hiring somebody saying, take your own personal vehicle till we figure this out, or take this other one that could be dangerous because it's 20 years old.
Right.
So we definitely hear the vehicle thing, and we are gonna address it with Melanie and Lindsay and I, with Chris, and make sure that everyone's voice is heard about their needs beyond just mileage and wear and tear, because it can't just be as simple as that.
We did this early on, a number of years ago, when we took over, the fleet was depleted, and so we started the capital, and we got ahead of it. So now we'll get it back. They were coming in from departments. Now we had a lot of special kinds of the fire and trash trucks or police vehicles, but
I just think to remember one time you hired them, you had to give you 23,000 or whatever to buy some vehicles just because you couldn't get them otherwise. So
Get on that cycle.
Okay.
So many vehicles.
That's been a common theme with
And we won't be able to pay also many.
with the street units. That's been a common theme of
Flintstones.
vehicle stuff.
Other than that, I mean, that's our biggest issue here, getting people back in the door, higher, keeping people there for.
And you're still with Dave Cotter and stuff. We're still doing those Saturday sweeps, and
Yeah, we just started those back up like normal. Actually, we started a little earlier this year because we're in springs.
and I can't say enough. The neighborhoods love it. When we first came in, we wanted that flex aspect, the ordinance squad that works hand in hand. The police department, it's really many times housing, code and building, but then if other things pop up, works with other departments, but the neighborhoods absolutely love it. It's about quality of life issues where they can quell some things on, so.
It's a good team issue. It was a good idea moving the flex squad up here. We work on pretty much on a daily basis. If they need us or we need them to work out really well.
We advanced that again into the CDBG for this annual action.
It's a winner.
Yeah, it's good. And the other important issue on that is
Chris Signole's calling him right now.
No, he did just text.
Did he get text? He said, don't Sheen, I need 15 more minutes.
That's
We gotta laugh a little bit once in a while to do a public construct. I'm sorry, Mr. Zessler.
That's all right. If you have any questions.
No, I mean, I know it's basically, like the Sheen said, you're basically, it's personal services, it's salary and stuff, but we know with the vehicles, and I know it's tough retention, so we'll look at that. The flex squad, that's been great, and we're gonna try to do some online permitting.
For expected projects.
Yeah, and then you're that's one thing, Steve. Any developers that come in, a lot of times if they're major projects, we have the powwows here or everybody's together. We set a schedule. Everybody knows what they have done, and the developer appreciates that, and they always love working with Steve. They're fair, and they're always very good to work with, protecting the integrity of the city and the development, so we appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? Besides Chris Signoli chiming in?
Now, we know the issue of retention, and we're well aware that we're gonna do what we can. We'll try to make
So,
sure we take
listen,
some-
I really appreciate everybody's efforts and family heads down the way, and your family, especially during these trying times. Good health, do me a favor, go out and have a good weekend. For those of you who have viewed the budget hearings, thank you very, very much. We look forward again to get the budget early to the city council, and so they can do their due diligence, and hopefully we can continue that trend of balancing the budget, unless the last 4 or 5 years without having to use any city reserves, which is unheard of for municipalities, but again, very proud financial team on them. So go out and have a great day and good health. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.